Is there anything else specifically about you? Do you have any projects that you're directing right now? Like, do you have any other stuff that you want to talk about right now before we get into the movie?
No, I think this has been plenty about me.
You can tell she's like, I do not want to talk about myself.
I
Oh,
thought we
no,
were talking
okay.
about a movie, not myself.
That's why I don't like talking, because I like watching, because it's just the visual cues. Like, she's like, I do not like talking about myself, and Chris is like, listen, you're gonna fucking talk about yourself. I'm not picking up on these cues. Dim the lights, settle in, and let's journey to the enigmatic layers, because we're talking movies. We're talking Longlegs, starring Maika Monroe, Blair Underwood, and Nicolas Cage, written and directed by Osgood Perkins. Chris, the gross guy's back.
Wait, are we talking about you? Are you still saying your prayers? Our prayers protect us from the devil.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of How'd You Like That Movie? We are going to be talking about Osgood Perkins' latest film, Longlegs, and to help us out is Canadian writer-director Jess Joy. Jess, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me out.
So how are you on this kind of, what is it? Is it rainy? Is it sunny? What's the weather where you are right now?
It's just clouded over and there's a little bit of drizzle happening.
Nice. So, I mean, normally we would be throwing this over to Scott, but with you on the show, this is your first time. What we like to do is a segment called Shameless Self-Promotion. So at this point, we're going to have you do some shameless self-promotion. So go ahead.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I'm an emerging writer-director here in Canada. I've made a couple of short films, usually in the genre comedy space. My latest short screened at a bunch of festivals, and recently I was hired to write a thriller film, and I'm also working on a web series that's a comedy mockumentary.
So which, I'm assuming you're talking about Luna Chicks. I think I saw that. Was it at Hamilton Film Festival last year?
Yeah,
Or
yeah, it screened there a couple years ago.
is the plan to do anything else with that short?
Yeah, I did write a feature version of the script, but it was my first feature, so I kind of stepped back from it for a bit, worked on other things, and yeah, well, might come back to it in a few months.
So do you work full time in the film industry, or do you have another job that you moonlight at, or how's that working out for you?
I used to be a grip in the union and I worked on sets as my full-time job, but I realized it wasn't conducive to helping me further my writing, directing career because there wasn't time to work on my own projects.
I'm a peacock, Captain. You gotta let me fly on this one.
So I just took up a normal office assistant day job, and that gives me time to do my own things.
Fantastic. Scott, do you have anything? Because I feel like, or are we just I'm gonna just talk to our guest.
Yeah. I'm just like everybody. Office. But yeah, no, go ahead. Go ahead, Chris. I figured that's why you brought guests on, because you didn't want me to talk. So
It's a way to like passively get around my co-host. Like, oh no, we're doing something right here. We're vibing. Are you able to talk at all about this feature? Like general story? No, when it's releasing? Like where are we going with this feature?
Can I say it?
No,
I would imagine.
Can I just give them a little taste?
I wouldn't say too much.
So the problem is they have to put it on hold right now because their funder is rebranding and there's like a whole thing. So I wrote the treatment and then they're like, we got to hold until we get the funding. So it's one of those development things that might not actually happen, but it was supposed to be like a Gen Z genre thriller about a punk band that gets stuck in a venue, and yeah.
Were you gonna be directing or just writing?
Just writing.
What do you have on your slate other than, again, well, actually, no, before we get into this, and what about your web series? What, again, it's supposed to be shameless self-promotion. I find our guests are like so humble. They never want to self-promote. You need to take a self-promotion tip from this guy who cannot stop talking about himself and his project. So.
Right. Oh, well, the web series is pretty fresh. Like I just got some funding for it last week. It's like a mockumentary about a failed business tycoon that's trying to restart his career and help small independent businesses, but he's kind of bad at it. And we're going to go into production on that in November.
So I'm assuming that's through the Bell 5 program,
It
the
is.
local access.
Yeah.
And are you in Toronto?
No, I live in Hamilton.
Oh, okay. So you're part of that Hamilton catchment of monies that's put out.
Yes, I was one of the lucky selected few.
No, that's awesome. I also have a project that has been pitched to Bell, a sitcom in Cambridge. So I'm
Nice.
waiting to see what they do as well. The budgets for those are so small, though, like so small.
Oh yeah. I know. I've been doing like I did 3 budgets and my brain is just like, this can't work. I need more money. Like,
Are you? Can you disclose how much you are getting for your budget, or would you
I'm
rather
sure.
not?
I don't know if I should. I'll just say it's under 30,000.
And you need 60 minutes of content for that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we came in with like a 50,000, and I basically said to him, "Listen, I'm a producer. You give me money, I will spend that money. So less, more, whatever." So, all right. Again, so Scott, you have nothing for our guests before we move on here.
No, I think you've done very well.
Okay, cool. And Jess, is there anything else specifically about you? Do you have any projects that you're directing right now? Like, do you have any other stuff that you want to talk about right now before we get into the movie?
No, I think this has been plenty about me.
You can tell she's like, I do not want to talk about myself.
I thought we were talking about a movie, not myself.
That's why I don't like talking, because I like watching, because it's just the visual cues. Like, she's like, I do not like talking about myself, and Chris is like, listen, you're gonna fucking talk about yourself. I'm not picking up on these cues.
Yeah, I'm not good with the social cues. All right. Okay. Well, Justin, Scott, we are going to talk about Longlegs. I'm going to let you guys start this off. So let's go.
All right, I'll go first quickly. First, I just want to congratulate Neon's marketing department, because they did a great job with this film. And now I'm done talking about it.
Ooh, hot take from fucking Scott. Wow. Okay, cool. Jess. Let's go top line. Let's go top line. Let that Scott kind of set the table. Let's stay there.
What do you mean by top line?
So, I mean, clearly we have a general understanding of Scott's feeling of this film without any nuance. What is your general take on this film overall?
Well, I think I should preface it by saying I don't watch a lot of horror, so I can't really come at it with that perspective of how it fits into the horror genre, because I'm a big chicken and I take things too personally. If I watch a horror, I'm like scared for a month. So when Chris suggested this movie, I was like, oh, I hope it's not too scary. And honestly, the opening scene was probably the scariest part of the movie to me. And then it kind of let me down for the rest of the film.
Cool. Okay, I guess, yeah. Well, my top line on this is I felt that it had a lot of great ingredients. But like a meal that had great ingredients that didn't really work out. That was kind of how I put, like, it had some great jump scares. It had great cinematography. There was some really solid acting performances, scoring and sound design also very good. But fucking the story and like the resolution of the story of this film felt like a fucking ripoff. That's what I'm gonna say to start this thing off. So, Scott?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, to me, I think this had like a good maybe act and a half. And I want to preface this, like, I went, like, my work, like my full-time job was affected by that, like, fucking virus thing, that software update shit. So I went to go watch this movie at a fucking matinee, and I fell asleep twice.
Oh, wow.
Right. And I'm like, what the fuck?
And I'm normally the guy falling asleep in movies.
Yeah,
not Scott,
like I
not
literally, and I couldn't believe it too, because I'm like, I know I'm not tired, right? But yeah, like, I think this had a good act and a half. And yeah, but once you got to the meeting of Longlegs and Lee Harker, it fucking broke apart, and it went like full Humpty Dumpty, because they could not put the shit back together again. Like, it just broke all the rules that were established prior. And yeah, like you said, like, coming to that resolution, like you're just like that. No.
It almost
Right.
felt like they were like, fuck, we didn't really give a logical reason to get here, so we're just gonna be here.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
throwing in the supernatural, it made no sense to me.
Well, yeah, the supernatural almost acted as, I can't remember the literary device. It's not a red herring, but where you're just like,
Like a
it's like a
MacGuffin?
Chekhov's gun, right? Like where you're just like, actually, it's not Chekhov's gun. Chekhov's gun is when you put something in and you never use it again. I can't remember the device, but it's basically just like, is it Dos Ex Machina, where you're just like, God did it. The answer is God did it. It's like, none of this makes sense. So we're like, supernatural. Oh, by the way, everybody listening, clearly we didn't preface this, and seems like preface is that this show is brought to you by the word preface. There's gonna be a shit ton of spoilers because we're already starting to spoil shit. So spoiler alert. Maybe I'll put a spoiler alert in the big opening. Yeah, Jess. So what else? Do you have anything else yeah? Well, let's tear this thing apart.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't caught off guard by the supernaturalism because they start pretty early on indicating that she is psychic, which I found a little bit unusual. But I agree that the story was not like screenwriting is really hard, but the story did not work for me in any capacity. But craft wise, like you were saying, Chris, beautiful cinematography. The sound design was great. I loved a lot of the performances. There were some really iconic shots in the movie that I was like, oh my goodness, this was like, must have been their like vision. When she's laying on the red carpet near the beginning of the film and she's like laying out all the documents, or when they walk into the attic of the barn and find the doll with the like light coming through those two windows. Like it almost felt too much like they had focused on the cinematography and had pulled you out of the story at that point. But I love beautiful images, so my mind was like, "Oh, beautiful pictures."
So this film has been constantly referenced, including by the director, to The Silence of the Lambs. Which
Right.
the big no-no there is like, okay, The Silence of the Lambs had something like 11 Oscar nominations or wins. Like it is and it's also like considered basically a genre film, depending on who you talk to, and is like really the only genre film that has like triumphed at the Oscars, right? Like, so first off, just forget even the aesthetic of The Silence of the Lambs. As soon as you compare a movie to another film that's that big, you're going to set yourself up for failure.
Mhm.
But that said, like they clearly are aping it at points, like the aesthetic, like just the aesthetic, like the color palette, everything. Silence of the Lambs. There's a scene with Longlegs where it was very reminiscent of a Buffalo Bill scene in Silence of the Lambs, basically the one where he's like dancing against the camera. Like even the way they set up that shot, I'm like, fuck, man, like, are you trying to make this guy Buffalo Bill? And then watching Lee Harker, played by Maika Monroe, like and again, like I think her acting was good, but the direction she's getting is Agent Starling. You're a psychic Agent Starling. And at points, I'm like, okay, can we stop trying to be fucking Jodie Foster right now? Like, let this character breathe and be its own character. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wouldn't go with her direction being Agent Starling or whatever the fuck you said. What
you mean the person from Silence of the Lamb, Agent Starling?
Yeah. Because like she had no emotion, right? Like when she's talking, she's very like she never influx. She's very like she's literally the female version of me. Like it just like very
boring?
like
yeah, I mean it's
100%. Like very monotone, just very like to the point where like at some points I didn't know if they were doing her like she was kind of like what's his name, the guy from The Good Doctor, like
yes.
like that she's on the spectrum but not like completely like and that's why she can like pick and choose, like that she wasn't really psychic, because like they build that up like that she may be a clairvoyant, but then they're like, oh, how did you beat that test 8 times? She was like, I failed it 8 times too. So you're like, oh, she's 50-50, right? Like maybe not, she's just guessing kind of thing. But yeah, like, and like at the beginning when it was kind of like a cat and mouse where he just shows up at her house, he lures her outside, shows up at her house, leaves that, like that kind of stuff I enjoyed. But once it does the whole like, and spoilers, like tied to the family, like that they've been tied for 20 something years or whatever, that's what like fell completely apart for me.
And
Because
I think that goes back to the script writing, because they give that away in the opening shot. Like they show that Longlegs visits her and that family. So you immediately know how it's going to end. Like, you know, the mom's going to be involved as soon as she's on the phone with her creepy voice.
Not listening. Not listening.
And to me, I just was like, I saw this coming. I didn't feel surprised at all.
Okay, so you're a screenwriter. We do this on the show often, thoughts, because I think I'm obviously the best corrector and director and everything, and I try and fix all these other films. Why don't you fix the screenplay? If you have these elements, they come to you, you can clearly see what was possibly in the script. How do you cut this down? What changes do you make? You can do whatever you want, but as a screenwriter, like off the top of your head, how would you fix this?
Oh, that is such a hard question, because my process is like staring at the elements for a long time. But I feel like they needed to do something else with Longlegs. He shouldn't have come in so early and been connected to her so early. And I also felt that she needed more character development in the beginning, because as an audience member, I didn't know anything about her until like not even like the third act. I still didn't connect with her as a person, and that made me not feel fearful for her life. If I had known more about her as a person, kind of her like background and what other traumas she has, it would help me feel more concerned for her life, as this character's haunting her. And then also talking about the comparison to Silence of the Lambs, I felt like that character was a lot of a stronger female. Like, she was going up against the serial killer and kind of handling herself like she could do it. Whereas Lee Harker was already at the beginning of the film, there was something wrong with her, and she was not prepared to take on this like menace.
That's a very good point, because I mean, we know right off the bat, Agent Starling is a badass FBI agent. She's a great shot, which is very important at the end of the film. She spars with Hannibal Lecter, which actually I think is a fantastic tete-a-tete between her and Anthony Hopkins. And then she goes up against Buffalo Bill, right? Like you like, and even the scenes in the Silence of the Lambs where like she acts as a very feminist person, being like, don't do that. They look to you as an example, and you need to show that like we're kind of equals in this playing field. Where Lee Harker, like, she's kind of like weak and fumbly like the whole fucking movie.
Yeah.
Scott?
Yeah. Well, that, and like it seemed like not she fell into everything, but like some of the stuff, like again, to me didn't make sense. Like when you have that opening like introduction to her, where you know they're canvassing the street for this killer, right? Like the guy knocks on the door, he gets his head blown off, and then the killer just lies on his bed while she's like
Hunting him? Yeah.
Well, I haven't been a cop and I don't know, but I'm pretty sure if you're like canvassing and like making sure like, you know, your blind spots are checked, you're not huffing and puffing, like telling everybody like, going up the stairs as loud as you fucking can, and then the guy's just like lying in bed or sitting on his bed just waiting for her. Like, to me, like I'm like that progression kind of didn't make sense, and you have no idea really like what did that guy do that they had to canvass a street for, because it's like mentioned quickly and forgotten. Like there's no emphasis on like what her actual job is, because all you know is she's a rookie, right?
I mean, it almost feels like they were like, you know, it'd be a cool set piece, that the opening and the gunshot, which it was. And then they're like,
it made me jump so bad.
We don't really know how to tie this in together, so let's just do this other thing. And then it would be like, again, there was a lot of, this film does have great jump scares. But again, those jump scares don't really have any connective tissue to anything else. It's just like, this would be cool. And I think a lot of films do this because the writer, and I do this too when I write sometimes, is I create a scenario, a scene, a set piece, and then I'll work backwards. But you do have to make sure that stuff actually ties in, or all you get is set piece, set piece, set piece, set piece. I mean, the way I would probably have fixed this script is, and they kind of almost mention it in the film, I would have gone more like Charles Manson. Okay, so you can use a cult, You got Longlegs as like the guy. Stop trying to have like 17 different, connections to the characters and stuff. Have her just be an FBI agent. She's just tracking down a serial killer. And like, you're trying to understand how he's killing over these long distances. Then you get back to that, like, he's not the one doing the killing. You've got his people that are going out and doing it. And yeah, like, just sometimes it's called being like too clever by half. You're trying to be super witty and it all falls apart. Sometimes just simplicity, standard police procedural with a serial killer with all those beautiful aesthetics makes for a better film.
Yeah, like I think you're right on that. Like, I would have taken out the whole doll shit. I would have taken out that. And yeah, like even having, like, I like that whole thing where it was like, the man downstairs, right? Like he works for the man downstairs. So if you had everybody thinking Longlegs is like the leader, and then you find out later on it's really this other person, in which you could have connected it back to the first guy, where he's the guy that didn't want to go through with it, and that's why he killed the cop, so hoping he would fucking get shot too, because he didn't want to kill his family. And there, it's just like a spider web kind of thing where everybody's like there doing it for him. I think that would have been good. But yeah, like those dolls to me made no sense, because the rules of the dolls changed very very quickly, right? Like once the one doll gets revived, the girl who apparently was in a coma that survived woke up, and then she remembers everything completely, and then Longlegs tells her to kill herself. She does. But
even stuff like that, right? Okay, so you're in a secure, okay, so you're in a secure institution.
You can't say that because they answer that question. Like, they thought of that because they're like, do you have cameras? And they're like, that's a good idea. No.
But right? And even the, like, you guys don't have a log who comes in and out of here. Oh, that's also a good idea. I'm like,
or you check ID. Like, no.
Like, they're basically prisons. You're not getting on the roof to jump off of an institute. That's just not, again, lazy or bad or whatever script writing.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, once these dolls get introduced, like, Lee doesn't remember her shit until her doll gets destroyed. That's when all of a sudden she remembers everything, right? But the other girl, clearly, when her doll wasn't destroyed, remembers everything. And then I don't even want to talk about the end doll, because I don't understand why the gunshot was important. You could have literally just picked it up and threw it off the roof if breaking it was so important.
So if we're analyzing it from a screenwriting perspective, like what we're picking up on as audience members, as a screenwriter, you should be saying, okay, I didn't set this up enough. So obviously they didn't lean enough into the supernatural. If they wanted to have those dolls, it had to be more of a supernatural film is what I'm getting from you guys. And also the reversal of expectations is very important in horror movies, especially. It sounds like we didn't get many reversals of expectations in this movie.
Yeah, it's like they were trying to set the table on a lot of different things to keep the audience kind of off kilter. But like you said, because they didn't develop any of them quite enough, there's no proper resolution or payoff to all of them. They all kind of fall a bit flat.
Yeah, and I think there's also something to be said about what was like the theme of the movie, because a lot of, like, Silence of the Lambs has a strong theme and what it wants to say about humanity. And also Seven is a movie they compared it to, and that has a strong theme about humanity. I came away from this movie not really feeling like, what did the filmmaker want to say with this movie?
Or what is the film even about?
Well, from what I read, he said the basis of this movie is about story, and the story parents say to their children that kind of continues, which again,
I don't even understand that statement.
But you had that one little part at the because it was close to the end when it was like the mom's telling the story about the little girl named Lee, where it's supposed to be this is the reveal of how she became enthralled with Longlegs. But again, like, that also didn't make sense, because the whole reveal of their connection is that her boss said that the mom called the cops on Longlegs, and then when you're hearing the story, the mom never had a chance to call the cops because she was tied in the living room after the confrontation. You're like, that's why, like, to me, like, it just fell apart, and it just fell apart hard.
It's like they shot their first draft. You know what I mean? Like, they're just working everything. They're like, you know what? It's good. We got 120 pages. Let's go. The name sat. I was like, Osgood Perkins. I'm like, is he? And yes, he is. He's the son of Anthony Perkins, right? So, like, the psycho guy. And it's like, but I'm like, really, he hasn't done, again, have you guys seen any of his work? Like, I'm the Pretty Things That Lives in the House. That's the whole title. Gretel and Hansel from 2020. He is the writer of The Black Coat's Daughter and The Girl in the Photographs. Like, I don't know. I know The Black Coat's Daughter. That's about it. Like, do you guys know any of his work?
I think I watched Hansel and Gretel, because if I remember correctly, the poster is like, Hansel and Gretel coming out of the witch's mouth, like on a string or something like that. If I remember, if that's the one I'm thinking of.
I'm sorry?
Sorry for what? For breaking my heart, or for giving me the greatest pleasure I've ever known and then just taking it away?
Both?
So basically, we're like,
hey,
no.
but he was in Secretary as an actor. He played Jonathan.
Which one was Jonathan?
I don't know, but go back and listen to our.
I like Secretary. It's a good film, but
yeah, I was gonna say, go back and listen
is.
to our episode and see if we even talked about Jonathan.
I mean, it's doing. I mean, so they had a $10 million budget, which actually this is a beautiful. Like, again, we've talked about this beautiful film for 10 million, especially because you've got Nicolas Cage in there. I mean, he is a producer, so he's taking some back end and he's getting a lot of. I mean, I do feel like as soon as you hire Nicolas Cage, you just let him do whatever he's gonna fucking do. Like, I don't think you put a lot of constraints on Nicolas Cage, or you just don't cast him.
You're Nick fucking. Whoa, Cage!
And it's so far done 40. When I looked at some of the numbers, because they use that kind of guerrilla campaign of not a lot of show, not a lot of tell. They did have under a $10 million budget, marketing budget. So this film has made money. So, like, I mean, he's definitely going to be able to make another film. That's for sure. And I think that this is really going to help. I mean, Nicolas Cage seems to just be on a tear right now. Like, he's got like multiple films coming out of post right now. He did say he doesn't ever want to do a serial killer again. He said it was a bit too dark for him, which is like, really? Really? Too dark for you, Nicholas? Okay, cool.
He looked like he was having so much fun in that role.
Absolutely. And I do like the hair and makeup, the prosthetics that they did.
Yeah.
He again, sometimes he's a bit over the top, but I mean, that's Nicolas Cage. Again, I think he did a great job. I think is it, how do you actually say her first? Is it Maika Monroe? Anyway.
He's talking to the wrong guy.
Yeah, we never get anybody's. I'm surprised we got your name right, Jess, and that's Jess. She was in Honey Boy. I mean, she's best known from It Follows. She was in Villains, which is actually a really interesting film as well. I do feel that this is going to move her up a peg. Like, this film is getting a lot of interest, if not accolades. I mean, the critics have given it an 86, 63 from the audience. That seems on point for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've been talking a lot about the negatives of the film, and it's hard to make a good movie. So I wouldn't say it's like I wouldn't say it's a movie I wouldn't watch, but it wasn't like A+ film for me.
Yeah, and I actually think that, like, yeah, contrary to everything we're saying, if you like horror and you like to be in that space, go watch it. Like, just go in with no expectations. Go in, but I would actually watch this in the theater. The screen's going to give it what it needs. You need that sound system to give you that sound design. And there is something to be said for sitting in a dark room with no outside influence for those jump scares to work, right? And like, you're just not going, you're going to be on your fucking phone at home. You're whatever. You're not going to have the setup. Just go to the theater, go on a cheap night, go when you got a pass or whatever. And definitely see this in the theater. Which, I mean, sometimes I just say, don't watch fucking movies. And I'm not saying that about this, but just don't go in with don't go in thinking you're watching a version of The Silence of the Lambs. And, on the topic of The Silence of the Lambs, like, that is based on a like massive bestseller of a book, like a book series in general as well, right? But like The Silence of the Lambs was a novel before it was ever a screenplay. And sure, it can be very challenging to convert those over, but you have like almost like a show Bible, like a film Bible in that document. Like those Hannibal Lecter's character is a three-dimensional character, like Clarice Starling's character is a like in the novel. So when you're transferring that to the screenplay, you have like a source material to go to. This, like, Perkins wrote this script. So I'm not trying to give him a pass, but again, like, you're going up against a film based on a fantastic novel versus like dude writing some shit. And like I said, like, yes, he's done some writing in before. He didn't write a series of best-selling novels
that you know of. He could have a pen name somewhere that
ghost name, yeah.
You never know. But yeah. I don't know what I was gonna say, but well, actually I do. In the opening, because you guys are the directors, what is the ratio that it's filmed in at the beginning? Because it's super like
Where?
Is it a 4:3 aspect ratio? Like the
I don't know,
square?
but it seems like, yeah, it seems super like claustrophobic kind of thing where it's like small. And like, to me, I think this movie would have worked way better if it just kept it on that ratio for the whole thing, because then it seems tight and more tense. Like, I know we're like, in terms of the things I'll say bad, or not bad but good, I would say in terms of tone and, you know, making you feel like a certain way, like this movie did. Like, all of a sudden when they would have like the little like split-second scenes of like snakes coming out and shit like that, like it was good at like making you feel kind of at unrest and like creepy.
Yeah, there's
kind of
isolation. You really felt her isolation. I think that opening scene actually set it up to be scarier than it was. It had almost a European feel to it, especially with that like zoom, like really intense zoom into the farmhouse, and then, you know, gets into the normal story. So I was a little bit worried that was going to be too scary, and then I'm just watching and watching. I'm like, I guess it's not going to be scary after all.
So the cinematographer is Andreas Arochi, and he basically like doesn't have a ton of big films. He did music videos, like he's done some film, but nothing I really recognized. And I thought, like I said, he handled the cinematics of this really, really well. So again, I think I would not be surprised, especially at like smaller, say like festivals or awards or whatever. I guess it's not going to do a festival run; it's already out. Him getting some nods, and I hope I see more of his work, because again, I thought he did a great job. I mean, so I actually have like two quotes. One I'll say for the end of the show. But Richard Lawson from Vanity Fair had this to say: horror movies do not have to have wholly logical explanations, but Longlegs hurdles past compelling murkiness and lands in the realm of dull nonsense. And I almost feel like that definitely encapsulates kind of what we've all talked about. Lots of good little things happening, not a lot of proper payoff. Would you guys agree? Or
Yeah.
Yeah, I already said that.
Okay, well, Jesus,
I don't need to
we're gotta be
myself.
entertaining here, man.
Come on, Chris, pay attention. But yeah,
I never pay attention. I don't even pay attention to you when you're the only guy on the show.
I know. You're like, you gotta watch it in theaters. In the podcast, Chris is on his phone half the time. I'm like, I don't know what to say. But yeah,
it is
like,
surprising. It has 83% from the critics, who are usually lower than the audience score. So
well, we've done a bunch of films where we watched it and we were like, what the fuck was that train wreck? And the critics are just like, salt and pepper, like they just can't get it in their mouth fast enough. And we're like, what? Did we watch the same movie?
Something ain't right.
well, and that's the thing. Like, I think, like I said, like, to give their like fucking marketing department like a nod, I am starting to think that a lot of people are just fucking watching just the trailers and the shit that's coming out there, not actually watching the movie, and they're like, this movie's awesome, right? Like, because yeah, like, to me, and I think to all of us, like, this thing falls apart like pretty quickly, that you wouldn't really be giving it like the accolades it's getting. And I wouldn't be surprised if this gets like fucking sound mixing and Nicolas Cage gets an
An
best
Oscar nod?
supporting. Yeah, best supporting, right?
Yeah, maybe. I definitely, when I went to see it, I saw it on like a Sunday night, and there were a lot of Utes that were watching the movie. So I don't know if they go on the Rotten Tomatoes and update their score. I would like to see. Actually, I should have checked to see what it's getting on Letterboxd,
Yeah.
because that's where the kids do their thing, right?
Yes.
So, Jess, do you have anything else you want to talk about before we let you go here? Because I feel like we've kind of actually, Jess, do you recommend the film? If so, who do you recommend it to?
I would say it's worth watching just for the craft of it, like the cinematography, production design, sound, editing. I think art is subjective, and some people probably would enjoy the story. We're coming at it from filmmakers' perspective, so we're a little more critical, I think. And obviously, some of the reviews, people did enjoy it. So yeah, go see it in the theater, and you can make your own opinion on it.
Fantastic. And Scott, same question to you.
This is tough. Do I recommend it? No. I do not. But again, there are bits and pieces like to me, Nicolas Cage was the best part of this film, but he's not really like in it that long, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, I wouldn't spend money on this, man. I fucking regret you picking this movie. Like, this is probably something I'm gonna hold against you for like a fucking long time. But like, anytime I'm like, let's go watch a Marvel movie, and you're like, fuck you, I'll be like, Longlegs, you owe me.
Yeah, you're gonna beat me over the head with this, and you're just gonna like guilt me into like watching fucking Willy Wonka's like Timothy Chalamet movie marathon or something like that, and I'll be like, no, and you'll be like,
I'm telling you right now, when Wonka 2 Rise of the Oompas comes out, we're like number one front row now.
The Timothy Chalamet documentary, directed by Timothy Chalamet and featuring all my hated actors, you're gonna be like, you're fucking going, you're gonna fucking like it, and you're gonna recommend it to everybody.
It is an independent, like not totally independent, but it is a movie with, they're trying something new. It's not a Marvel movie. So we should say, I do think people should support people trying to write new stories, and that people are funding new stories, because Marvel has become too much part of our industry, and there is a lack of innovation.
Hey man, those Marvel movies are a triumph of cinema. I live on those Marvel movies. I live for those Marvel movies.
Yeah, support indie film.
And that's something that we talked about when I definitely, actually, no, both Scott and I butchered Maxine. We were like, this is fucking awful, basically. But we were like, the fact that Ty West created a trilogy of totally brand new IP, do that. Yes, we want that. So do support that aspect. The film sucked, but like, we appreciate you coming out and trying.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jess, so how do, if people want to hire you, whatever, what's the contact? We'll also put that in the show notes. But yeah, how do people get a hold of you?
I'm on Instagram as Jess Directs, and that's my website as well.
Cool. Scott, anything else for Jess before we let her go?
No, thank you so much for being on. I apologize to Chris's behavior, constantly cutting you off and not picking up on what you're trying to do. Again, care package will be sent. So yeah, no, but thank you so much
thank you for having me out. That was really fun.
All right, talk to you later, Jess. Have a great day.
Hi, you too. Thanks again.
And that is our wrap for the day. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. Tell your friends. If you want to get a hold of us, reach us at the www.howdyoulikethatmovie.com.
So one of the things I forgot to bring up in the show, I mean, because it just didn't really work because we were actually talking about the film. So not only is his dad Anthony Perkins, but his mom is like this actor, former model named Barry Berenson, who actually died in one of the airplanes on September 11th. Like, I don't know, it's just like your dad's psycho. Who Anthony Perkins ended up dying of complications from HIV. I think mostly because of blood transfusions, and then his mom dies in fucking September 11th. Like, Man, not a fucking happy fucking life this guy's having.
Or a fucking, like, upbeat ending to the fucking show. Like, way to bring that fucking down.
Hello, my baby. Hello, my body. Hello, my ragtime girl. There's the upbeat version. Production by Rod Shaver, Vader Monkey Productions.